I'm not an FBI agent. I'm a special agent with Department of Homeland Security.
Okay. Thank you for the correction.
No
Yeah.
problem.
So
And actually only for 2 more weeks and I retire.
wow. So tell us a little bit about that. I was really like curious about how you started that career and how that led you to be a dog trainer.
Well, it pretty much started at the same time, to be honest. Right after I started my career down on the United States Mexican border, me and my wife got our first puppy together. And just like a lot of people, things went bad real fast. And we destroyed the dog by doing a lot of things that people always do, and started working with a dog trainer. And that was it. I was done. I was hooked and I became obsessed with learning how the mind works. And that was it. I never stopped.
You post something that really like about an old person, I guess. When you're still working as a special agent, you mentioned that you're helping somebody try to pass exam, like regard like shooting or something like that. I wasn't quite sure
Oh, okay. Yes.
the
Yes.
post you did, and you said that person can never pass it, right? Nobody have faith in him, and he has such a hard time.
Hmm.
And then you said you provide something that he really needed, but no one ever give to him, and he able to pass it with flying colors. Can you give a little bit more backgrounds on that, however much you can share, and what exactly how you would know, like, okay, that's what that person's missing.
Sure. This person's job was on the line because if you can't carry a gun, you can't do our job. And this individual had other issues going on, other problems. And when you have problems in your life, it affects everything you do, just like it does when you have dogs. The things that we struggle with and go through in our personal lives affect how we live and interact with our dogs. And so, this guy obviously had been an agent for a long time, but all of a sudden he was having these struggles. And so, being on his final time to pass, what I noticed was now you're adding more pressure than ever. When you're coming down to the final couple of tries, all you're doing is putting more pressure. So, imagine in dog training, you're trying to give your dog a complicated task and you're adding more pressure, be it verbal pressure, physical pressure, punishment, whatever. And the dogs still don't have any idea what you want them to do. It just creates more chaos. And when there's more chaos, there's more confusion. So that's where this guy was under. And so even though I didn't really know him very well, I just pulled him aside and I talked to him and I tried to have him, get inside his own head and understand that he doesn't have to do anything different he's ever done before. He was allowing all the things in his life really create that chaos when he was there. And the thing was, our shooting system, there's multiple distances and time frames. And most of the shooting we do, you're not standing there just shooting at a target. It's timed, you're drawing from the holster. It's high pressure for the most part. And he would do fairly decent from the closer ranges, like a lot of people do. As soon as we moved back a little further, that's where he would fall apart. Okay. And that's 100% mental, 100% mental, because in reality, there's no difference from shooting from the 5 yard line to the 25-yard line. No difference. The only difference is the difference you're putting in your head, you know? And to make a long story short, I really explained to him and told him what to do and just to try to settle him down. And in a nutshell, I told him, I want you to forget about the target because the second you try to start concentrating on the target from that distance, that's where he's going to create his own chaos. But if you just focus on the front sight of the gun, pointed down at the target should be blurry. You shouldn't even be able to see it. Focus on your front sight. Do all the same things you did at the 5 and just take your time. And it took one time because it made sense to him. But putting someone through the course isn't teaching or helping, and some people just need to hear that one little thing to get them over the hump. And that's all it took, that's really all it took. And of course, there was more personal conversation there. And I think if you're going to be a good teacher, you have to be able to connect with the people, whether it's on a gun range or on the dog training field. You have to connect with the human. That's the most important part.
I love you say the connection to this particular person you helped. So in your dog training, what are some of the things you're like, how we can best connect to our dogs?
Well, the connection to the dog is easy. Okay, I'll give you an example. I just did a seminar this past weekend, and one of the things that I loved hearing, my buddy, who was also the host of the seminar, had one of his girls that works for his company. She said something to the effect, I don't know if it was word for word, but that when I take a dog to go work a dog, the whole world just kind of disappears for me and the dog. And it's just us dudes. I'm just paraphrasing.
Mhm.
And I loved hearing that because that is what I care about. You know what I mean? So if you have a problem with a dog, and I saw it a ton this weekend, everyone tries to start focusing on behaviors and commands and methods and techniques and tools, e-collars and prong collars and slip leads. That's never going to make that connection, that relationship, that bond that you need. So sometimes if you take a dog that's struggling, no matter where it's struggling, and you just take it away from the scene and you just sit down and spend some time with the dog, settling the dog, touching the dog, and just being, beautiful things start to happen very fast. And we saw that several times this weekend, especially with a couple of pretty difficult dogs. It means the world of difference. We had this one female pit bull there that I really just fell in love with, and she came in muzzled because she's highly dog aggressive, and she'll bite a human when she's fired up like that. And when she first came into that kind of atmosphere, tons of people, tons of dogs, it was tough. And I took the dog, and she nailed me with the muzzle on several times. One time nailing me in the knee with a metal muzzle, it doesn't feel good. But the first thing I had the owner do is take the e-collar off, stop the punishment, stop all that, because that's not going to help that dog right now. And I just took her off to the side and spent time with her, let her do her thing, let her throw her fit. But she had to see that's not going to win. I'm not going anywhere. And then I got on the ground with the dog, and she was still focused on the crowd and the dogs and wanting to get back to her owner. And I gave a nice massage, started on the neck and the shoulders, and she was just flexing just a ball of muscle, tense, tight, and very intense. The eyes were rolling in the head. But after a few minutes, you start feeling the body ease up, and ease up. Till eventually she fell over and gave me her back, and I'm rubbing her belly. And at one point, when her owner came and took the leash to take her, she wouldn't go. She stayed with me, you know. So that's a wonderful feeling to me. And those are the things that gets deep inside my heart. When you make that kind of connection with an animal that's struggling, for me, that's what it's all about. That's the most gratifying kind of stuff.
What's your take on breeds?
To say breed doesn't matter would be lying. Genetics play a really strong role in everything we do, but it's not everything. And not all breeds have characteristics that run deep inside that breed. You know what I mean? A dog like Bella, is that going to make her more intense, more serious when she does get into a dog fight? Yeah, usually is. That's who she is. That's what kind of dog she is. And some people don't like to believe that. But the bully breeds are definitely different. They're extremely tough and intense, and when they go, they're going to go, and it's going to be full bore. But the beautiful thing about the bully breeds is when they give it to you, they also go full bore into that. They give you everything. And that's why it's the pit bulls and the pit bull type dogs have been my favorite breeds to work with. For I love them. I just love them to death.
Two category people like get rescue dogs versus the people get from breeder. Now it's run to almost like similar problems as there's a lot of irresponsible breeders that totally blindside a lot of the dog owners.
Sure.
And I think you mentioned it. Correct me if I were wrong. That especially nowadays, bad German Shepherd breedings.
Yeah.
And could you share with the audience who are interested in getting a dog from a breeder, like what they should maybe look for, like in terms of
Sure.
make sure they get a good puppy?
Grace, the issue is there's so much fraud in all areas of dog training. Like most things, it's not just dog training, but when there's money involved, there's going to be a lot of scam artists. So you have people breeding dogs that should not be involved with dogs at all. Okay. But you also have rescues that should not be dealing with dogs at all. So I see dogs that go to bad breeders all the time, but I see people that get dogs that are a mess from rescues that should have never been rescued out. Like never, not in a million years. But they don't care. And they talk about it, got this dog from a rescue, but it cost me $400. That's not a rescue. That's just a backyard breeder. What's the difference? What is the difference? But the thing with the German Shepherds, you took what many would consider arguably one of the greatest breeds ever created, extremely intelligent and loyal and built and bred for a very strong purpose, right? And I remember as a young kid, my family had German Shepherds, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. We didn't have these issues and they lived to 16, 17, 18 years old. But now, they are so popular in this country and you can find them anywhere. And you can tell a poorly bred German Shepherd from a mile away. You see the lanky bodies and the rounded backs and the big, giant, oversized ears and the small heads, and they're scared of everything. That's most of the Shepherds that I see. Because when somebody wants a German Shepherd, unfortunately, if you go to a top breeder, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to cost you a ton of money. And most people can't or don't want to do that. And I totally understand that. Not to say that you can't get a great German Shepherd for a decent price. You can. But for the people that do it the way it was meant to do back in the olden days, to preserve the breed and only breed the dogs that should be bred for health and temperament, you're going to pay a lot of money. And so and I'm not kidding when I've said this for years, I could literally just make a living off training messed up German Shepherds. And it's and every trainer usually says, yeah, I totally get it. Me too. And it's a damn shame because they're beautiful animals.
Yeah, I'm a huge German Shepherd fan, and I work with a dog trainer who's breeding German Shepherd for protection work, and he also work with other people's German Shepherds. And he occasionally asks me, "Do you see what's in that dog?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "That's a bad bred dog, having
Yeah.
problems." And
Yeah.
yeah, it is a shame. Rescue. So I personally work with rescues years back,
Mhm.
and I've encountered, the dogs that 3 months old, getting to a doctor's home and beats over 10 people, like serious
Right.
biting.
Sure.
And they were being told that's puppy bites,
Yeah.
right? It's going to grow out of it over time. And I'm sure you've encountered a situation like that. And for me, I think helping dog owners with that type of dog is one thing, and how to help the dog owner or people interested in getting dogs that not to get themselves in that type of situations.
Sure. Sure. Well, when the average dog owner goes to pick a dog, whether it be from a breeder or a humane society or a rescue, they don't know what they're looking for. They're going to pick a dog by the way the puppy looks or the connection they have, or this one is sad, or someone's going to tell them a sad story about what happened to this puppy or what happened to its mother. And that's what's going to get the puppy adopted.
I lost your audio. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You're back.
I was getting a call even though I put it on do not disturb. I don't understand why. Yeah, so they're going to go for the sad story over the quality of the puppy. And the thing is, listen, there's a lot of wonderful dogs in shelters and rescues, a lot of wonderful dogs, but you have to be honest with people, and when you get a dog from a situation like that, you don't always know what you're getting, because genetics do play a really strong role in what a puppy is going to grow up to be. And in reality, you're not adopting a puppy, you're adopting a dog. And that puppy's not going to be a puppy for very long. So if you have a puppy or a young dog or even an older dog inside a shelter that came from parents that were extremely aggressive or shy and fearful, just weren't dogs that should be bred, well, there's a good chance you're going to wind up with those issues. And then it's a vicious cycle because then the people run into so many problems, and then that dog winds up back in the shelter, and it just keeps going and going and going. You know what I mean? And so, in reality, when there's a big push for spay and neuter has been big in this country for a long time. It's not helping. It's not clearing out the shelters because just like in all aspects of life today, Grace, nobody wants to take responsibility for their actions. And our shelters and rescues are overflowing with dogs because of irresponsible people. And that's what it comes down to. All my dogs are intact. I have males, I have females. None of my dogs have ever impregnated another dog or gotten pregnant, ever, because my dogs are never without me. They're never out loose running around to do those kinds of things. So if you're adopting a dog or you're going to leave a dog outside chained to a tree or something, well, hell yeah, you better have that dog fixed. You know what I mean? But it just comes down to irresponsible people, and no one is ever held accountable anymore. We want to blame everyone else except the people at fault, and that's got to change. That's got to change.
Besides with dog training experts, I also have a lot of non-dog training experts, such as, psychologist, parenting coach, because I think human, in order for us to help a dog, we have to really improve ourselves, that really able to figure out our own emotions and get rid of our own baggage before we put those baggages on our dog. And sometimes it's just like I mentioned, that people just lack of common sense. Like, they don't blame the tool, the people use the tool, right? They instantly say that's a bad tool. Like,
Sure.
it's kind of like blow my mind from time to time.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a lack of common sense, and everything that we encounter in our lives. And everybody struggles with things. Everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you are. I don't care if you're gay, straight, black, white, Asian. It doesn't matter. All people are the same when it comes right down to it. And everybody has their struggles. And when you're struggling, the animal suffers too, not just emotionally, but people tend to take out their problems on the easiest one to take out their problems on. And very often that's the family dog, the family cat, whatever. Fish are usually safe because no one wants to break a fish tank.
Yours seems to be really gifted on articulate such emotions or tell people like this is our trouble right now. So have you always been like this, or you also over the years you feel like better connecting with people over the years?
The thing that I've worked on over the years, Grace, I'm not the world's best dog trainer. There's tons of dog trainers out there that are far superior to me. I've gotten very good at understanding dogs in the simplest way, although not all of them fall under that category. But where I have gotten most success is I understand how easy it can be to connect with the animal and make things clear for the animal because we're speaking two different languages. But more importantly, to show the people, not just tell them. You know, a lot of people can do wonderful things. A lot of trainers can do wonderful things in front of a dog owner and explain things to them and show them things or exhibit things a, at a seminar or a workshop. But in reality, most of that stuff comes down to entertainment. People get wowed and they're entertained. And most people, unless you really show them in the most simplest form and have them provide you with some kind of idea that they get it, they're going to take away nothing. They're going to say, man, that was awesome. I had a great time. I learned so much at that seminar, but then nothing changes when they go back home. And so the reason I started pushing so hard at that was because I've seen it. Several years back when I used to go to seminars, I'd be at a seminar. It was just phenomenal with, phenomenal trainers. And I'd see my peers that I knew, and they were so blown away. And then 6 months later, I see them and they're no better than they were before. And I'm thinking, you were there with me. Like that day changed me, changed so much for me. But people go, they watch, they get entertained, and then they don't do anything, you know? So in this past weekend, I met a lot of phenomenal people, a lot of phenomenal dog trainers and regular dog owners, like really good people. And so many of them were doing so many things right with the dogs. And just by tweaking little things that maybe they didn't understand or didn't see how the dog sees things, we're able to make tremendous changes on the spot, you know, real things that they can take home and make better every single day. And that's where so many of us are failing. I really believe that, you know. As dog trainers, we take for granted what people know. Things that we take for granted that come common sense wise when you're working with the dog, the average person doesn't understand. So you have to break it down and be able to educate them in a way that it makes sense and they can implement it. And if you can't do that, it doesn't matter how good of a trainer you are, you're helping no one. You're helping no one. You're just selling tickets.
Could you give us example, like what are the say, I use the word nuances, like people
Hmm.
missing that, and then you show that person that's the thing you're looking for, and instantly like change the mindset and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. People tend to make it way too complicated for the dog, too confusing for the dog. Okay. So, as humans, let's pick one of the most common things. As humans, we want to do everything at the same time: hand motions, voices, commands, body language. We do it all at the same time, right? But the dog doesn't understand that. A dog needs it broken down into pictures. The verbal command separate from the physical command. You know, the physical command separate from the body language, all that stuff. So time after time this weekend, I would show people just how confused the dog was. I'd say, okay, do your thing. And they would do their thing. I say, okay, now put your hands down and give the dog a command. The command it knows best, and don't move. Don't do anything, you know, and dog after dog struggled. And so that's very eye-opening for people. Okay. But then I show them a very simple solution how to change that, just how to start breaking things down. Okay. And I show them, okay, your dog doesn't know how to get on the place board without you just giving it the command, because you're always showing it where to go. You're always using your hands, you're using your body, you're going toward it, you know, and that's fine as long as you start from very close. And I'm big about helping the dog. I cheat to help the dog win in the beginning. I'm going to make it so the dog can't fail, you know. So I'm going to start from a foot away from that place board. And I'm just using that as an
Hmm.
example,
Yeah.
and I'm going to give the command without moving, without doing anything, and then give it a little help with my body language or a hand signal or something, you know, and then I'm going to mark it with the reward marker as soon as it gets up there. And then I'm going to reach in and provide some food. Because another thing that I saw over and over, and I always see, people want to move the hand to get the reward at the
Yeah.
same time as they're using the reward marker. And what they don't understand is that reward marker has no meaning, because what the dog is responding to is the movement of the hand to go retrieve the food. So
Yeah.
we do more tests. We do more tests. I tell them, put the dog in a down, come over here, stand here. And if their reward marker is yes, I say, just stand there and say yes, yes, like you're rewarding. Most of the dogs don't move, you know. And when a dog hears the reward marker, they should come flying, but the dog truly don't know it. Or I'll say, does your dog know a release command? We'll say, yeah, okay, stand here, do the same thing. They say free or break, and most of the dogs just lay there because they're not sure.
Mm.
They're not sure because you're not providing evidence with your body what you want. Okay. And that's why if we just all slow down and make it very easy for the dog to understand, you see the change instantly. I mean, absolutely instantly. And that's what people need. They need to see it. If you could show them, if you could tell them what the dog is going to do, and the dog does that, you have them. They believe you, you know, and they're going to trust you, and they're going to try it, you know.
Yeah, that's so cool, because I constantly tell my clients, like, hold your hand, hold your hand. They're like subconsciously hands already go to the bait bag without even realizing they're doing that.
Sure. People like to reward. It makes them feel good, and because that's the part that makes them feel good, that's what they're in a rush to get to, and they just can't slow it down.
This is interesting because I actually have clients come to me doing training and stuff. I told them you need to say the marker word first before you go reach for your treats. And they actually told me their previous trainer told them the opposite.
Yeah. Crazy.
Right? I'm
It's
like,
crazy.
what? And then they wonder
Well,
why they can't wean off the food over time.
sure. And so the poor people are just as confused as the dogs, because who do they believe, right? If you go online and watch 10 different dog trainers, you're going to get 10 different things. And that's okay. No dog trainers train the same. You don't have to. But as long as the same concept where the dog is getting a clear picture is there, then you're going to do fine. The dog doesn't care about who's doing the training as long as they can understand what the heck you want.
You mentioned this before, and I've encountered clients still have like hard time wrap their mind around it. It's about the free feeding.
Yeah,
Right? And I said you need to stop free feeding because you're like your dog not really realizing those are from you. Since the food has come for free, they're like, why my dog doesn't understand how that's going to affect my dog's behaviors. So would you mind give us a little bit deeper talk on those for the people who are like not realizing that is a problem?
yeah. Well, there's so many negatives. First, for one, there's no positives that go with it. None. Okay. It creates very picky eaters because the dog doesn't have to worry about eating. They always have access to it. The other thing is it can create very fat dogs and unhealthy dogs for dogs with big appetites and don't know how to turn it in. And the most important thing, you know, all things good, all resources should come from you. That's part of creating that relationship. That dog needs to see you at the end all be all. You're the greatest thing in the world. Everything the dog loves comes from you. And when the dog has access to things all the time, whatever it has access to that easily becomes not very important. And that connection between the feeding, that's a very important ritual. That's a wonderful thing from the dog's perspective, that you're providing something that it needs to survive. It's a very powerful thing, and you diminish that when it just lays around all the time. It's just not good at all.
It's interesting. I work with a lot of really fearful dogs because I work with dogs that are feral from Taiwan,
Hmm.
and they are naturally not tend to bond with human, and they are not big eaters, most of them, because they're just so stressed out
Sure.
most of the time. And then
Hmm.
people tend to feel bad for the dog, like if
Sure.
I don't live there, my dog can't eat. And it's interesting. I asked one of my clients, I said, are you doing free feeding? And she said she's not. She feed her dog twice a day. And then I asked her what you do. I said, how you exactly do it? She said, oh, I feed my dog at say 8 a.m. in the morning. Then I leave the bowl there and I add more at 6 p.m. at night.
Aye, wow. Yeah.
That's twice a day, right? I'm like, no, you're
Yeah.
free feeding your dog. For a dog, extremely fearful that even you leave the food there, so you give it time, they're still not eating. Like, and then you also mentioned before, like we also don't want to go on like give dog like hunger strike or stuff like that. So where we find the line there on
Well,
feeding?
the problem with that, Grace, is you're doing more damage than good. Even more so with a dog like that, because a dog like that really needs that structure and leadership. That dog needs you to take the reins to where it can feel comfortable, that it doesn't have to worry about anything anymore, doesn't have to stress about anything. If you feel sorry for the dog and you cater to the dog because of past experiences, it makes it impossible for the dog to come out of that. You know what I mean? And if you put food down for a dog, I don't withhold food as far as because of training purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people train with, the way they train is with the dog's food. If the dog don't take food, they don't train and they don't eat. I don't do that. I use their own food to train, but they eat from a bowl mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if the food's not gone in 5 or 10 minutes, then the food goes away. That's it. And next feeding time, it goes down again. Eventually, Mother Nature is going to kick in, and the dog's going to realize it's got to eat. It's not going to starve to death. Okay. And that alone is a very powerful exercise. Every now and then, you'll get a dog that's so messed up. You may have, I had one dog that, it didn't eat for 4 days, which isn't the end of the world, but it didn't drink for 4 days either. And day four, I was going to take it to the vet and have to get it on an IV because that is dangerous. But day four, it finally started eating and drinking. That was a free fed dog, by the way, too. That was. And see what happened, and that wasn't a feral dog. That was a dog that was catered to and babied and pampered its whole life, had access to everything, had access to food and toys and affection and constant, just did whatever it wanted. So the second that dog was pulled out of the house and it came to me, it struggled. It struggled big time, and it took me a while to really get through to that dog. And a dog shouldn't be under insane amounts of stress just from leaving its house, you know? And that's something that humans create. Dogs aren't born like that. And that's a damn shame.
You also mentioned about the affection. This is a huge thing. I still remember, I still use your quote to my clients. You talk about the unearned affection are really damaging the relationship.
Sure.
So, and for my clients, I think part of for a lot of audience, whoever listening, also they're really confused, like what affection means in a sense, like in what context, right?
Sure.
And how they can know, like, oh, we're not overly affectionate towards our dog. Could you give a little more context on that?
Yeah. Look, I'm a very affectionate guy. I give a lot of affection to my dogs, to my kids, to my wife. That's how I am. Okay. So I do love on my dogs a lot, but my dogs don't have issues. But even at the same time with my own dogs, I don't allow them to dictate the affection. Okay. Because I'll give you an example. I use the same example all the time. My old Rottweiler, Bruno. People used to think, a lot of people thought he was the greatest dog they had ever seen. And even though I didn't have issues with him, if I was laying on the couch and he came over and he dropped his head on me, to pet him, I wouldn't do it. I'd send him away. I said, Bruno, go. And he'd go, and he'd walk away and he'd go lay down. And when he was laying down, I'd say, come here, Bruno. I'd call him back to me and I'd love on him. Would I have messed Bruno up by petting him? Probably not. But still, you have to understand, what is the dog telling you? In their world, what does that mean? In their world, they're coming in and taking your space. They're invading your space. That's important in the dog world, right? And then he's demanding for your touch. Hey, touch me. And what I tell my clients is, this dog right now is saying, hey, bitch, touch me. And you do it. Just like you teach the dog to ring a bell and you get proud because the dog rings the bell to let him out. Well, who's the human? Who's the dog here? Who's telling who what to do? So, the average dog home, most people we see come to us because we have behavioral problems. They have behavioral problems, right? If you don't have behavioral problems, I don't care too much what you're doing. But if you have issues, then we have to make some changes. And quite often, people become addicted to that affection with their dogs. Most of the time, they don't even know it. We could be having this conversation, and I'll say to the person, "Look what you're doing right now." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "You're petting the dog, and you don't even know it." They're always touching, touching, and they can't help it. They don't know it. That's like an addiction. The human is addicted to providing the affection. And the problem is, the second the dog doesn't get it, now you have the dog hooked on that affection. Okay. And there you start creating conflict. So, what I tell people is, when I get a dog that comes here, I could do absolutely nothing with the dog, and the dog's going to get better, because it's like I removed the dog from the crack house. I removed the drug addict from the crack house, and he comes here to get clean. So, as long as I'm not providing him with the drugs, the dog gets better. But if I send the dog back to the crack house and you don't stop selling crack to the dog, he's going to go right back to where he was before. You know, I don't tell my clients, don't love on your dogs. In fact, it's opposite. I want you to be able to enjoy them more. But listen, if you can't take your dog for a walk because he wants to eat everybody or every dog he sees, or he's bit one of your children, or he's difficult to live with, we got to make some changes. Okay. And if you're not willing to make those changes, you created these problems, and we could fix them, but you have to change the bad habits that you're doing in the past and replace them with good habits that's going to make this dog better, you know?
Yeah, I always describe it's like a detox process. So it's gonna look bad.
Sure,
A lot of people having a hard time to see their dog going through that. I said, well, that's what detox look like. And you have to kind of get dark before the dawn, right? Like it's just have
sure,
to go through that. It's a lot of people see their dog being really reactive or aggressive. They think their dog's dominant.
sure.
And how would you describe to a person what a dog dominant and submissive means and what actually their behavior come from out of
Most
fear?
the whole dominance thing, it's very silly because very few people are ever going to deal with an actually very dominant dog. It just doesn't happen. But again, it goes back to everything you give the dog. The dog is so used to getting everything it ever wants in life. Okay. It lives in your home free of charge of everything. It gets, and has to work for nothing. Now you take the dog for a walk, it's on a leash, right? It's contained by a leash. And now it sees something it wants, another person, another dog, something. And all of a sudden it can't get to it. And now the insane frustration kicks in, right? And it gets worse and worse and worse because all of a sudden now you're telling the dog it can't have something. And that's why kicking that in the face inside the home and raising the dog properly is so unbelievably important. People don't understand the damage it does once you try to take the dog out there. You know, when you get a new dog, especially a puppy, you have a clean slate, you have a blank canvas. People want to start teaching it, come sit and down in place, and they want to teach it tricks. You know what? Spend the first several months just playing with your dog and taking it out and exposing it to the world because then you don't have those problems. But no one wants to do the things needed to create a very stable dog. And isn't that all what most people want? Just a stability in a dog that you could take for a walk that doesn't care when it sees another dog, another human. It should be neutral to that stuff. You shouldn't be so boring and lack so much interaction and relationship with your dog that when your dog sees something else, it's insane and can't contain itself. Because I can tell you when if I take my dogs for a walk, they don't see anything on that walk that they think is more awesome than me. They think I'm the greatest thing in the world. Well, maybe every now and then.
I want to like get in context when you say take the dog out to expose the dog to the world. A lot of people take that as dog park. So
Yeah,
let's
no, Lord, no, no. Now, for one, when you get a puppy, the puppy could still get sick. It doesn't have all its shots. So there is no way a puppy should ever be near a dog park, but a dog shouldn't ever be near a dog park. Okay. Dog parks are a killer. There's just absolutely no purpose for a dog park. It provides no benefit whatsoever. You want your dog to run free and not have to worry about it running away? Train your dog. You don't need a dog park. Okay. Dog parks are valuable when I have an issue with client dogs. Eventually we will end up training at dog parks, but outside the fence, not inside the fence. And a puppy doesn't have to meet a bunch of dogs, doesn't have to meet a bunch of people, although I'm okay with my puppies meeting people. I may just, if my boy has a soccer game and I have a puppy, I'm just going to take it with us, let it hang out. There's all kinds of screaming and balls flying around and kids running, and people are going to want to say hello and meet it. And that's totally okay. I want to expose the puppy to all those things I can. I want to put it in a shopping cart and push it around Tractor Supply. I want it to, see a train coming down the road and trucks and air brakes and buses and all these things. If you could do that in the 2 months from 8 weeks old to 16 weeks old, you give your puppy such a great chance of being a very stable dog. We've never owned a dog that's scared of gunshots or fireworks or storms or any of that stuff. And a big part of that is because when we get a puppy, we just do things with it. We expose it to the world so it's not freaked out when it experiences something new.
so what's your suggestion? Now this is a puppy. Now when they have a rescue dog already have all the issues that
Sure.
they're already scared of the world. What's the best way in terms of people tend to feel like, oh, I didn't socialize my dog before. Now I need to overly socialize my dog.
Sure. So when people adopt an older dog, okay, for one, if you're out looking for a dog to adopt, don't adopt a dog that's scared of the world because you automatically have an uphill battle. That's it. Those dogs shouldn't be adopted out. Why would you adopt a dog out that's going to wind up back there anyway? Okay. Adopt a dog to someone where the dog's going to have a good life and the people are going to enjoy it. But when people adopt an older dog, I just tell them start basically like the dog was a puppy. The one advantage you have is you can go much faster, but do the same things. Don't bring a new dog into your home, even if it's 3 years old, and just give it free reign of the house. Can't do that. Introduce the dog throughout your home slowly, little by little. Have the dog on a leash. Use a crate when you can't have your eyes on her or he can't be with you. Start off like a dog is a puppy and allow him to earn that freedom management until you know the dog is okay. It's no different. Sometimes it's easier because you're not dealing with a little puppy that's going to have accidents and have to go out every couple hours. So no different, same thing. But if you're going to adopt a dog, know what you're getting and don't adopt a dog with a bunch of problems.
I love this part. I think I'm gonna say something like my audience probably gonna be like, because I work with feral dogs, they're all scared of world.
Sure. Well, listen. I did a seminar in Scotland last year, right?
I know the dog from Thailand. I watched the
Yes.
seminar.
That guy came all the way from New York. Okay. So don't get me wrong. When I'm talking like in the last segment we just talked about, I do have a big heart for those dogs, but you have to be realistic and people have to understand what they're getting. And the average person, Grace, is not going to give that dog what it needs to thrive. And they're only going to wind up back in the shelter, you know? So when that dog came over and its owner, David, he's a trainer in New York, he told me how bad this dog was when other dogs would approach and stuff. And I kind of thought he was exaggerating, maybe. We went for a hike out in the mountains. We had a lot of dogs. It was an amazing day hiking through the mountains of Scotland. And at one point, he was standing there with his dog talking to someone else on the trail, and another dog approached, not in a bad way. That dog was screaming like it was being cut into pieces, fell on its back, belly up, and shaken. And it was bad. It was absolutely bad. But the next day, when I worked that dog at the seminar, I worked that dog. I didn't feel sorry for it and coddle it and baby it. We worked it. And you know what happened? That dog started changing like that, immediately started feeling better about itself because the first time it was allowed to better its own situation. It had never been able to do that before. So I love working with dogs like that, but you can't put that dog in a regular home. The dog's going to suffer more and the people are going to suffer. So back to what we were talking about earlier, there's got to be common sense used here.
Yeah. I really love this because one of the thing I start seeing is that because local shelters are empty out nowadays.
Yeah.
And more people actually start getting dogs from foreign countries. And I've worked with Taiwan dogs in the past 6 years, and those are extremely fearful dogs. I'd say some of them are better, but none of them I would say are confident and brave. They're just not. And a lot of people getting them really without knowledge or preparation of what they're getting, in a sense.
Yeah, that's a lot.
One of the challenge I'm facing, at least myself, I'm sure a lot of dog trainers and other organizations facing that we talk about, we blame the dog owners, then we blame the dog trainers. And the thing we have hard time talking is certain nonprofits and rescue organizations, how they advertise the dogs and how they get the dog to the owners. I think there's also a huge gap there. I see the clients bringing the dog. I'm like, gosh, how do you get this dog? And this dog have like beautiful charts. This dog's friendly. This dog is wonderful.
Yeah.
This dog's great. And then people are like huge surprised by the time they got the dog at home.
Yeah. A lot of lies because unfortunately rescue is big business. It's big money. And I used to do a lot of free work for rescues years ago. A lot of work. And what I started seeing was the calls would get a little more demanding and demanding more and more and more. And I didn't see much effort on their part. And I saw a lot of shady characters out there, and they would blatantly lie and put dogs in homes that should never have been adopted, and I started getting dictated on what I should be doing and how I should be doing that. I was like, I'm done. I'm finished, because in reality, it was never about the dogs for a lot of people. And at the same time, there's a lot of very good rescues out there. So let me say that, a lot of very good rescues, a lot of people that do tremendous work for these animals. But just like in the dog training world, where there's a lot of bad people, the bad ones kind of make it tougher for the good ones in the rescue world, and it has become big business. There were rescue organizations during this whole COVID thing that started breeding dogs because they had no more dogs in their shelters. Think about that. Think about how disgusting that is. You're going to tell me now, thank you, Fia. You're going to tell me that that's just not about business now. You accomplish what you're supposed to. Your shelter's empty, and that's a bad thing. I thought that was your goal, to have an empty shelter, and now you're breeding dogs because it's for profit. They make money, they get funds, they get grants, and they get paid to send these dogs out. Some rescues are charging a fortune for rescue dogs, but it comes with a sad story, so people buy it.
Gosh, the one thing I really love trainers like you, just who are not afraid to talk the truth.
Not always a good thing. Let me ask you, could I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So you're a Chinese woman living in the United States.
Hmm.
Have you encountered any issues because of the stigmatism? I can't even talk right now, associated with the whole virus thing and everything. Have you had to personally deal with that? Has it affected your business at all?
No, I would
Good.
say no.
Awesome.
And
That's fantastic.
it's very interesting. Well, a part about to say, gosh, it's my show, so I'm gonna say whatever. But have to think twice nowadays to say anything. Racism is real. I think I recently
Sure.
saw your post about another trainer, all those things.
Absolutely.
I think came here, I personally consider myself really lucky. I went to a school to pursue my master's degree, and it's a school really have a lot of diversity. They have a lot of international students. So
Hmm.
people see you, they don't think you're special or weird or anything. And the interesting part is when I was in China, when we talk about people needing things or missing out, I suck at English and mathematics. Like I couldn't pass exams. To talk a little bit about this e-collar thing that you're so good at.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of backlash about this. People just hate the tools or whatever, right? And I personally believe they have a lot of those people probably have emotional baggage themselves that they can't talk about it, or
Hmm.
so they kind of project that feelings onto the dogs. For the people do with an open mind or willing to listen when come to tools and come to use an e-collar. So what would you tell them? Like when is
Well,
it time for them to try?
here's the thing, Grace. I don't push it on anybody. I don't try to convince anybody anymore. I used to. Years ago, I used to go out of my way to show people and convince them. I'm in a position now where I don't have to. And the thing is, I've never dealt with much criticism or attacks from, say, purely positive people. I really never did. And I still don't. And the reason being is because I don't give them an opportunity to. They've never seen a dog mistreated or looked down in the dumps in my care. And so even the people, I've talked to hundreds of them that are against the tool, that are force-free trainers or whatever, they call themselves. And I've had good conversations with people, and they do say they don't like it, they wouldn't use it, but they do see that I really care for the animals and I'm not harming animals. And at the same time, there's been many people that have made the switch and started using tools once they saw the way I utilize the tool, because I am very light-handed with it. But what I try to explain to people is, I don't have success with the dog because I'm good with an e-collar. I have success with the e-collar because I'm good with the dog. There's a big difference. It's just a tool. If they took e-collars away tomorrow, I would care less. It wouldn't affect me and my animals. It wouldn't affect me and my dogs. It would make it a little more difficult to provide that off-leash freedom for client dogs, because I just think if you're going to provide a dog with off leash freedom, you should have that seatbelt, that safety net on the animal for that. When I do have a purely positive trainer say to me, hey, what do you need e-collars? And explain to them, you have to understand something. I don't teach anything with the e-collar. I teach everything with positive reinforcement. That's it. The e-collar is taught in a very light way, in a very easy way for the dog. So I could provide it with that freedom, you know? So when the average family, goes out and buys a hunting dog, a bird dog, a dog that if it gets a chance to run, it's gone, you know? And that dog has to live on a 4 or 6 foot leash in a fenced in yard. Do you think that's a great life for the dog? No, it's not. You're totally stopping the dog from doing what it was genetically bred to do. But even with an average pet owner, when we can lay a nice, strong foundation of training down for that dog and teach the e-collar the way I do, now even average dog owners, and I use the bird dogs example because I train a ton of them that are in regular family homes, get to go out with the family and go hiking and be off leash and be a dog. It's just a better life. And the people that aren't utilizing everything at their access, is it for you? Is it for your ideology? Or is it for the dog? Because I guarantee you, if you look at a dog I train and you look at a dog that's confined to a leash, I can guarantee you any dog I train is going to be happier than yours. It's just going to be because it's our job to provide the best life possible for that animal. And for me, if I'm going to have a dog running off leash, you have to have that backup. And I don't use a lot of punishment in dog training. Very rarely. It just doesn't happen a lot, but it's because of the way I teach it, the way I train. And so, what I just told the people at the seminar this weekend, if you train the e-collar properly, chances are you'll never need the e-collar. And that's my goal with every single dog that I encounter, you know?
Somebody posted your video, group, and they said the dog's abused into happiness. And
That wasn't a joke. Someone someone did post one of my videos in a dog training group, and someone literally posted that dog was abused into happiness. I can't make that up. I thought that was great.
I
I'll
think
take that
that's
as a compliment.
that's a great saying. I actually ended up wrote an article about it, and I said, well, I would take that any day if I can abuse a dog into happiness. And
Yeah, sure. And, and,
it's
and listen, to be fair to those people, Grace, there are plenty of trainers out there that should never be allowed to touch an e-collar or a dog. And with that, I agree with that side. I'm not this guy that has this very strong ideology where if you're a purely positive trainer, I hate you or don't agree with you. I get along with a lot of purely positive trainers. I really do. And most of them, their heart's in the right place. It really is. And the ones who have their heart in the right place, they'll tell you when a dog is above their pay grade where they don't want to deal with it. You know what I mean? Because there comes a time where you have to do more than use a treat with a dog. It's just, and even though that's mostly what I do, it's just not enough. But it's the ones that go out there and lie. And, the big name ones that just really don't know how to train a dog and then convince the general public that everyone who uses tools is bad for a profit so they can profit off it. Those people I have no respect for. And I said people because they're not trainers, they're TV personalities. They
yeah.
just are. So when you take the couple of the big ones on the purely positive side that we always see, they hate everything and anything, but boy, they're running to the bank every chance they get. And they haven't saved one damn dog that has real problems, not a single one. They get a dog that wants to kill someone. You know what they do? They run away from it or they tell the people put it down because they would
Yep.
rather put a dog down than use any kind of discomfort on the animal. Think about how sick that is. That's a damn shame.
I always say dogs' behaviors are a reflection of their mind. So we have to work the mind, to change
Sure.
behaviors. I think a lot of
Absolutely.
trainers try to solve the symptoms over the root cause. So that's
Absolutely.
how they use the e-collar, try to, like I said,
100%.
correct the thing. where it's
100%. A dog avoiding the pain, a dog not going after the human because it's avoiding the pain from the e-collar or the prong collar, that's not training. That's not fixed. That's a dog avoiding the pain. Eventually, the mind's going to win and the dog's going to accept the pain. And the only way to truly fix that is to change the dog's mind that when he sees that thing that he normally wanted to kill, he no longer feels that way. That's the difference.
towards the end. I have one thing I really want to hear you to discuss this more, that about rewarding the dog. We always say, oh, we want to reward the dog. We always want to use positive reinforcement. But at the same time, I found my clients don't reward their dog enough.
Sure.
And
Sure.
and one thing really you mentioned really resonate with me when you talk about the spontaneous reward. I believe that's a
Hmm.
phrase. You went to
Yeah,
the
sure.
seminar and you said
Hmm.
that word, that phrase really clicked with you. So
Yeah,
from that
absolutely.
day on, you start rewarding the dog in very subtle things. It's not just obedience, right? It's daily behavior changes. You try to reward that. And could
Hmm.
you like expand that a little more?
Yeah, sure. That whole story had to do with a Dutch Shepherd that I got when she was 7 months old. And she was a great dog at home, great family dog. She had great drive. I could do cool things with her. But anytime I took her away from the house, she looked like I had been beating her. It was very frustrating. There was nothing I could do with this dog. I tried everything. And then I drove 14 hours to go to a Bart Balone seminar. It was the first time I ever met him, first time he came back to the States to do a seminar. This was 10, 11, 12 years ago. I don't know. And so all day long, he's getting these difficult dogs out there with some phenomenal trainers, some world class trainers, very well known people. In 10, 15 minutes, boom, 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 doing his thing, fixing this dog, right? All day long. Then it's my turn to go out there. And he said, okay, work your dog. And I do. And he said, I throw the ball for the dog. I throw the ball for the dog. He says, I can't help you. And you could hear everyone go, oh man, they felt bad for me. He said, there's nothing. He said, you got this dog to 60% out of 100. He said, I might be able to get it to 65%. He said, but there's nothing else you could do for the dog. And I didn't feel bad about that. I actually felt good because at least I did everything I could. So what happened right after that is at these working dog seminars, most dogs stay in a crate in the car and they're barking and they're crazy. Well, she was a really good dog, and my dogs are meant to be with me. And so she was with me, and Bart was working with the next dog, and I was standing there, and he started talking about something. He was talking about spontaneous reward, right? And for some reason, like right around that moment, this dog who never picked her ears up when we were on the road or out in public, looked up at me and her ears were straight up and she looked confident. And I said, yes. And I rewarded. And that reward kind of confused her because she had no idea what she was getting rewarded. So she stayed in that confident, confused look. And I just said, yes. And I rewarded. Yes. And I rewarded. And I just kept rewarding that state of mind. And so I grabbed her, I threw her in the car, and I went down the street to a local school and I started working her out in the parking lot and I was firing her up and she looked fantastic. And so after that weekend, when I came home with her, I told my wife and I told my kids, here's the deal with Karma. That was her name. I said, from now on, if she looks sad, she doesn't exist. We don't pay attention to her. We don't give her food. We don't give her water, nothing. She doesn't exist because we have to make her feel better about herself. And so about 6 months later, Bart came back somewhere in Virginia. He was in the same area. I drove out there 14 hours again to learn from one of the best. I had my dog with me, but I didn't go there to work with her. I just wanted her with me. And during one of the breaks, I was working the dog off to the side, and he came up and he said, that's not the same dog. I said, yeah, it is. He said, bloody fuck, no, it's not. That's what I'll never forget it. I said, yeah, it is. He said, what did you do? I said, well, it was something you said that really triggered something in me. He said, what did I say? And I told him what he said. And he said, I didn't say that. I said, you did, and that's why I tell people at seminars, when you go to these seminars, if you take a dog, don't just sit there and pay attention when it's time to work your dog. Shut your mouth, stop socializing, and pay attention to what the presenter is saying. Because if I would have been talking to one of my buddies at that moment, I never fixed that dog.
I start practicing something with my clients. Prior, I heard you mention this because I was telling my clients, you don't, people tend to like go on obedience, right? To reward the dog sitting. And then when something happened, they force their dog to sit and try to reward the dog. I said, okay, I said, let's see what your dog capable of doing. Like what I usually said, let's reward when your dog a little more calm or relaxed. When your dog's not freaking out, let's reward your dog, even though your dog maybe
Sure.
not doing anything special in their eyes.
Hmm.
And then you start talking about the spontaneous reward. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm waiting for. This is
Yeah,
exactly
sure.
what my clients are missing because they only see their dog. They can't see their dog being good dogs during the day. They only see the
Hmm.
negative things and they try to force them into behavior that they think they can reward. They don't see their dogs anymore. So that's
Yeah.
really like part of validation, also a game changer, I think, in my training as well.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. It really does, especially when you focus on the behavior and the mindset of the dog much more than the obedience. Makes a big difference.
I, you know, I know it's been late and you're here with me for this long. I really appreciate that. So you want to say something?
I appreciate you having me. I'm glad we did this. I'm glad you sent me another email last night.
I was like, gosh, he might be forgetting,
Listen,
but
no, it was a bad day in our house for some reason. Everyone was in a down mood, the whole house, all four of us. We just weren't having a good day, and me, I took my little guy out for tacos. Me and him just went out to I wanted to make, and that didn't work. And then his mom took him for a ride, and I think everyone came home feeling a little better, but it wasn't a good day, and no one could tell you why. You know what I mean? And so when you think you have to do some kind of an interview and you're in the worst mood, so this actually turned out very, very well. It worked out perfect.
I appreciate that because I messed up for your introduction. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be shitty today.
No, no, it happens. It's totally okay.